I do think that Trump has been unnecessarily harsh in his external rhetoric towards the state of Iran. Not really a fan of that, to be honest. Now, of course, Iran has, in no way been innocent. I think that, some threats are probably warranted, right? You've got a state that's, developing nuclear weapons and claims that they hate the United States of America. That seems like a recipe for disaster. I think that, it would be suicidal to argue that we should do absolutely nothing about Iran developing nuclear weapons. All that said, I think that, Trump has kind of gone from 0 to 100 rather quickly in terms of threats. Right? I think that saying publicly that you want to destroy an entire civilization is pretty unwarranted. There are more tactful ways to speak, and also, to be fair, there are probably all types of wild things that are said behind closed doors. I think it's probably pretty normal, actually, for something like that to be said behind closed doors. If Trump had sort of stuck to that, I would have been fine with it. But when you go out there publicly, that does something very different, right? Because when you say something publicly, you're not just speaking to the person that you are directing your words towards. You're also speaking to the world in general, right? So Japan is seeing what's been being said. China is seeing what's been said. Not everyone needs to be hearing people say things like this. And I also think there just needs to be a more natural escalatory progression of the language rather than just going, full bore, what are we, weeks into this? Not good. Not good. That said, I do think that it is justified now for us to go to war against Iran. And this is aside of any wishes that protesters on the ground in Iran have. I think it's entirely reasonable to be hey, you are literally stealing our oil, give it back, or else, we're gonna do some serious damage on you until you can no longer steal our oil. And I did hear a recent report that, the United States of America is sending out minesweepers. Iran claimed that they had placed mines all over the Strait of Hormuz. So that's a good sign, I think. That's a pretty good sign. And hopefully, Iran doesn't try to blow up those minesweepers. I think if they do, some massive and swift retaliatory measures are absolutely warranted. I do know that, there's a 2-week-long ceasefire that was recently brokered over the weekend or just before the weekend. But even so, I still think that it would be fair to be you know what, let's put an end to this. It's sort of time to say, there's a limit to how much that we're willing to tolerate. And actually stop tolerating the intolerable. Because if let's be honest, if Trump does nothing, it just sends a message to the world that it's fine to interfere with our supply chain. You can mess with the supply chain of energy and nothing will happen. We don't care. We'll do nothing but bloviate on Truth Social. Right? That's not a good message to send. I think even Trump understands that words are strong, yes, but actions are stronger. So, it's still a little early, right? It's still a little early. There is some time for Trump to make the right moves here, but, he's taking longer than I would have hoped. I understand that negotiation and things take time, but this is a result of negotiations breaking down. If negotiations were the way and negotiations were the solution, then this would have been over by now. But Iran has made it clear they don't want to negotiate over having nuclear weapons. They just want to have them. And so that sort of has put us at an impasse where it's okay, we want to let the country that says we want to kill you get nukes? Seems like that's something that some people are on the fence about. So